Hello everybody and welcome to this time lapse. So we've got a scene here, it's a landscape and the city is Oxford. Now I'm busy doing a little series on literature, books, and this is from His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. And it's when the main character Lyra with her demon Pan are in Oxford, and I generated the image using an AI program called Midjourney. And so I'm having a go on pastel matte paper. This is the white pastel matte. I've cut it down from an A3 size down to 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters square. And I'm starting with the sky. Per normal, I start with the background, I work my way forwards. Now, there's several things that went wrong in this painting, and trying to correct them, actually I lost interest in the painting, but I knew I had to finish it because it was a commission. I think one of the things that happened to me was we've got a strong perspective in this painting and all the lines are going towards the vanishing point. So when I was doing the sky, it's almost like that vanishing point was pulling me down towards it. So it's like the sky was all somehow in my brain. Can you see the shapes? I'm painting the clouds. They're moving down to the middle towards the vanishing point. And I just couldn't get my sky to work. And looking at it, it's almost like subconsciously everything in the painting was going to this one point. And I didn't want my sky to do that. I wanted the road to do that and I wanted the buildings to do that. But I didn't want the sky to be doing that also, as in being pulled towards the vanishing point. So you'll see me throughout this, I keep going back to the sky. I just wasn't happy with the sky. Here I'm trying to correct it. I'm putting more horizontal lines for the shadows of the clouds. But inevitably, it still looked like it was, the clouds were pulling down, making a V sort of shape, which I did not like. Also, because I'm using an AI program, there's always going to be a mistake in the reference material. So there was a mistake you can't really see so much in the reference photograph. It only becomes more apparent when you're actually pasteling it. But the parallel lines weren't lining up. So, and then I had to do that. And I'm not a huge fan of buildings. I love them to look at. I love them on my wall. But pasteling them, I feel like they are quite challenging just because of perspective, and all the straight lines. Anyway, so you'll see me use a ruler, make a start on the back. I'm using new pastels as well as my pastel pencils, and just getting some base layers in there. There's a lot of detail. These buildings are beautiful. They're not just straight concrete. So my thought was, let's get a base layer down of color and tonal value, and then I can go over the top with details. So you can see me here, their base layer of just a dark tan sort of color, and then I'll come back over and over again and build up the details. So using my pastel pencil, because that's got quite a nice small nib, so it's easier to draw with. Sometimes because the pastel sticks are quite chunky, doing something as detailed as this is a bit tricky. So I'm not really using my pastel sticks for the detail. I'm saving that, unless it's a hard pastel, because they are smaller, so it's easier. But I am leaving my main details, you can see here, all with the pastel pencils. So because I'm using pastel pencils as the top layer, I need to make sure that there's enough tooth on the paper for those pencils to show up nicely. So I am working in very thin layers, and I'm really rubbing into the paper as I go along to crush those pigments into the paper so that I'll still have space to put pastel pencils on top for the details. So another mistake in the AI production of the image, you can probably just see it, but in the reference photograph, the actual light is not sitting on the lampstand. It's a little bit to the left. So obviously I had to make that change. So often in AI images, or the ones I use, like it's a very basic program that I pay, I think it's £10 a month for. And I use it very basically, as in I don't use all the features on it. Maybe I can change those kinds of things. I can put the light back on the actual lamp post without it being to the side and looking strange. But I don't have time for that. I know when it comes to pasteling the work, I'll just fix it myself. But that's because I've got experience as an artist. If you're first starting, you may be a little bit unsure how to make certain changes and things like that. But also, if I'm really a bit confused, I can always say, now there's a pansy, and something about the pansy leaf doesn't look like pansy leaves. I can always, of course, buy a pansy and study the leaves and copy the leaves onto my painting is what I can see in front of me. Or I can just go into a royalty-free program like Unsplash and have a look at pansy leaves. But for this one, I'm not going to faff about with I want the main story in my reference. Here I love the color in this reference. I love the light. I just thought it was just such a lovely picture that I was really happy with it. So I'm not going to faff around, like I said, changing the reference image. I will do those changes when it comes to pasteling, but then that does add a bit of a stress when you're actually pasteling. So the best thing would be to actually have a go, sketch it out yourself from the reference photograph, make those changes before you come to pasteling on your paper. But hey ho, I have the personality where I just like to dive straight in. But yeah, I could have saved myself some irritation and possibly enjoyed the whole process a lot more than what I actually did. So there's always an aspect of a painting that I will feel intimidated by, and there's an aspect of the painting I'm not worried about because I'm like, oh, they'll be breezy. Well, and then it surprises me when I come to the painting. I'm like, oh, that was harder than I thought, or oh, that was easier than I thought. In this one, it was the cobbled street. I wasn't worried about that at all. I thought I could pull this off easy peasy as pie. That was not the case. Like I said, I'm not quite sure if I was just in a different zone with this one. I guess sometimes we are just off, and then we're creating things that just feel off. But I guess that's just part of the journey. Some paintings we create we're going to like, others are going to go in the bin, and others are just going to get a meh. So this one is definitely in the meh category. It wasn't didn't turn out as nicely as I had hoped. One little tool that came in really handy in this piece is a tortillon or a paper stump. I get the very thin ones. I've got a range of sizes, but I use the thin ones the most. So it's just a rolled up piece of paper, kind of looks like a pencil. But what that does is it can really get into little corners where your pastel pencil, your pastel stick just can't. To rub the pastel into the paper, you can change the shape of certain things. They are really, really useful. It's kind of hard to explain how to use them, especially when this has been speeded up so fast. But you can check this over on my Patreon in real time, where I do talk quite a bit about the use of a paper stump. I'll leave a link in the description below. So here I am busy working on the cobbled street, getting a base layer of color and tonal value down first, and then coming in with the details, pretty much similar to what I did with the buildings. So of course my base layers, I had to make sure I wasn't filling the tooth of the paper. So very thin layers and really rubbing each layer into the paper. So that I can then build details on top of those layers with pastel sticks, the hard pastel sticks and pastel pencils. The pastel sticks I use is New Pastel by Prismacolor. They're a little bit tricky to get here in the UK, but you can buy them as a set on Amazon. They are beautiful pastels. They're my favorite hard pastels to use, actually. You can also get really nice sharp points with them. They're cubed shaped, so if you break it in half, you've got such beautiful sharp points to, bring in some detail. But this is coming to an end now. I'll leave you here for the next few seconds, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.